They led him down a long, cold hallway, chains rattling softly against the cracked concrete floor. Each step echoed like a countdown. In less than 24 hours, Daniel Harris would be gone. A man who once smiled like sunlight was now reduced to a prisoner with nothing left, except one final wish. When the guard asked what he wanted for his last request, Daniel didn't hesitate. He didn't ask for a special meal or a visit from anyone. He just whispered, "I want to see my dog, please. Just once more." That simple wish would change everything. Before the orange jumpsuit and the cell, Daniel was an ordinary man living in a small Texas town. He worked as a mechanic, fixing old trucks, helping neighbors even when they couldn't pay. He had rough hands, a kind heart, and a quiet laugh that could calm a room. But his greatest joy was Max, a golden retriever he had rescued when the pup was barely a few weeks old, shivering behind a gas station dumpster. From that moment on, Daniel and Max were inseparable. They weren't just man and dog, they were best friends. Max followed him everywhere, riding in the passenger seat of his old pickup, sleeping by his feet every night. People in town used to say, "You can tell a man's soul by the way his dog looks at him." And Max looked at Daniel like he hung the moon. But life has a cruel way of testing good hearts. One stormy night, as Daniel was driving home after a long shift, a figure appeared suddenly in the rain. He swerved hard, but it was too late. A young man lay motionless on the asphalt. Daniel jumped out, shaking, calling for help, doing everything he could to save him, but the boy didn't make it. The boy's family was powerful. Heartbroken and angry, they demanded justice. Rumors spread, stories twisted, and before long, Daniel became the villain in a tragedy he never meant to cause. They said he'd been drinking, though he hadn't. The evidence was lost, mishandled, or ignored. In the chaos, an innocent man was sentenced to die. Prison can crush even the strongest spirit, but Daniel found one thing that kept him alive: letters from a woman named Emma. She volunteered at the local animal shelter, where Max had been taken after Daniel's arrest. She wrote to Daniel every week. "Max misses you," she said. "He still waits by the porch every evening." Another letter said, "He sleeps with your old gloves at night. He's getting older now, but he still wags his tail when I say your name." Those letters were his lifeline. Every word reminded him that love still existed somewhere beyond those walls. Years passed. Appeals failed. Time ran out. One morning the warden came to his cell, clipboard in hand, voice flat. "Do you have any last requests?" he asked. Daniel's answer was simple. "I just want to see my dog." The request broke through the routine coldness of prison life. No one had ever asked for something like that before. The warden hesitated. It wasn't allowed. But Emma, when she found out, refused to give up. She wrote letters, called officials, started petitions. The story spread across social media. Thousands of strangers shared it, saying, "Let the man see his dog." On the day of his execution, Daniel was led to a small courtyard. The air was still. The guards stood silent. And then, from the other side of the fence, a familiar sound broke the silence, a weak, familiar bark. Daniel looked up. There he was, Max, his golden fur now streaked with gray, his steps slower, but those same bright eyes full of love. Daniel dropped to his knees, tears flooding down his face as Max limped toward him. The moment their eyes met, the years melted away. Max pressed his head against Daniel's chest, tail thumping softly against the ground. Daniel whispered, "I'm so sorry, boy. I didn't mean for any of this. Thank you for waiting for me." Max licked his tears, the same way he used to when Daniel came home tired from work. In that moment, everyone watching forgot where they were. Guards, officers, even the warden stood frozen. It wasn't a prisoner and a dog anymore, it was two souls finding each other again, one last time. But fate had one more twist left. Just as Daniel was saying goodbye, a guard came running into the courtyard, breathless, clutching a radio. "Warden," he said urgently, "you need to hear this. The governor just called. There's been new evidence." Everyone turned. The guard explained that old files had been re-examined. DNA samples that were thought to be lost had been found and tested again, and the results proved what Daniel had said all along. He was innocent. Emma's relentless effort and the public's outcry had pushed investigators to reopen the case. The execution was halted on the spot. Daniel's life was spared. When the cell door opened weeks later and Daniel finally walked free, Max was waiting outside with Emma. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions. But all Daniel could see was his dog running, still running toward him with that same happy bark. Daniel dropped to his knees again, arms open wide, and Max leapt into them, tail wagging, heart full. The crowd cheered, but Daniel only whispered, "We made it, boy. We made it." Freedom didn't erase the years of pain, but it gave Daniel purpose. He didn't seek revenge or anger. Instead, he used his story to help others, men who were wrongfully accused, families torn apart by injustice. He began volunteering at shelters with Emma, speaking about forgiveness, about how kindness can survive even in the darkest places. He said that without Emma's compassion and Max's love, he might have died long before that final day. Max lived for 2 more peaceful years, sleeping every night by Daniel's side just like before. When he passed, Daniel buried him under a big oak tree behind his house. On the wooden marker, he carved the words, "The one who never stopped believing." Daniel often sat by that tree, telling visitors that love never leaves us. It just changes form. He said that forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting, and that hope can come from the most unexpected places. The man the world once condemned became a symbol of strength, kindness, and the power of second chances. His story spread far beyond his town, inspiring thousands of people who had lost faith in the goodness of others. Daniel's story isn't just about a man and his dog, it's about faith, love, and redemption. It's about how the smallest act, a rescued puppy, a letter from a stranger, can change the course of a life. It reminds us that no matter how broken the world feels, there is always something worth holding on to. Sometimes the love we give comes back to save us in ways we could never imagine. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to comment below and share what part moved you most. Your words mean more than you know, and if you believe the world needs more stories like this, stories of hope, love, and kindness, please subscribe to Be Kind Always. Turn on the bell icon so you never miss the next story. Remember, no matter what you're facing, no matter how dark it seems, there's always a reason to hold on and to be kind, always.